Ahem. Good morning. There we go. Well, on behalf of the Fellowship Board of Directors, I want to welcome everybody here today and online and here. And whether this is your first time or whether you joined us years ago, we're delighted that you're here this morning. So the best way for newcomers to get more information about the fellowship is to sign our virtual guest book, either via the QR code on your bulletin or at the welcome table in the fireside room. Now, please feel free to stick around for coffee fellowship and conversation after the service. And online folk, you too can have an opportunity for conversation. Just stay in the Zoom room and you'll be right there. And now announcements. First, all of the completed Get Out the Vote postcards, those of you that have filled those out, those can be given to Jenny Huntington this morning. So, Jenny, this morning. And other announcements. We still remember the parties and special events created for past auctions. Oh yeah, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Take, for example, the Burgers and the Vegas poor taste party of about 35 years ago, yesterday. Guests came in their scuffy worst attire, from pajamas to hair curlers to work boots. House rules were posted, including ashtrays not provided. Put out your cigarettes in the Jell-O salad. The host sat at a beautifully appointed table and had a gourmet dinner. They sat wherever they could find a spot. They ate hot dogs and Jell-O and made questionable sculptures out of the mashed potatoes. More than a dozen people bid on it, remembers Kay Berger. Everybody had fun. So be thinking. To help jog some ideas, pick up an intake form today at the auction table in the fireside room. Now it's almost time for Ames Pride Fest again. And you know what that means? We're looking for volunteers to set up, staff, and clean up the booth. So talk to Jamie. Okay, come celebrate art with us. Everyone is invited to join us here at the Fellowship at the opening reception of artist Jill Woodward's Women and Children First exhibit this coming Saturday, October 4th, from 5 to 7. Come view Jill's paintings of children and enjoy refreshments and fellowship. And lastly, next Sunday, October 5th, our service will feature a blessing of the animals. That's right, you get to bring your well-behaved only pets to church. This is our first time trying out this unique liturgical movement. Sorry. And we want to be sure that everything is well managed. To that end, there's a lengthy article in your weekly latest email. If you'd like to bring a furry, feathery, or scaly friend, please be sure to read the entire article. Yeah. And thanks for joining us today.
Our call to fellowship this morning comes from the Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. Here today, in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know, and may we know so that we can change ourselves and this world. I invite those at home to light a candle alongside us as we light our chalice here, saying these words together. We light our chalice in the spirit of belonging, fierce and loving. We share a commitment to meet this moment of existential crisis together. Please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. Microphone, thank you. I invite anyone, young folks or the young at heart, to join us on the blue carpet if you care to, or you're free to remain seated. Today I wanted to share a little bit about Harriet Tubman, and I was curious to know if this is a name familiar to you. Anybody know the name Harriet Tubman? What do you know about Harriet Tubman? She did not like racism. This is a true thing about Harriet Tubman. Thank you. The other thing, this is a picture.
She was an escaped slave?
Yes, she was an escaped slave. Yeah, very good. All right, well, good. I wasn't sure if this would be a familiar historical person for us or not. And I'm sure some people know some things about her, and maybe some of you got to see the film this summer, Harriet. It was screened at our public library in a series of events that we'll talk about later in the service. That Harriet, she was born around 1822 in Maryland. And you're right, because her parents were slaves, then she was expected to be held in slavery too. So if you get a chance to see that film or read any books, you'll find that she was really fearless. From a young age, she always stood up for what she thought was right. And as a teenager, she was even injured trying to defend a field hand from an angry overseer who threw a heavy object, was throwing it at the man, and she got in the way and had a serious head injury that really affected her for the rest of her life. She would would fall into sleeping. It was a kind of, they called it a sleeping sickness. And so sometimes she would just kind of drift away in her consciousness. Yeah, hi.
And also, I've been reading, I think, Hazard's Tales, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, but she had kind of like some sort of like predicting the future, what's going to happen.
Yeah, so he has been reading something about Harriet Tubman, and the books mentioned that she had visions sometimes, and he's predicting the future. So sometimes she would have a calling, and she would feel like she needed to do something, or she would see something that was going to come to pass. And so these are stories that she shared with people that came as an effect of that young injury. Thanks for that. She shared with others that some of her visions led her to really seek freedom. And one time she said, "I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other." You see her commitment to her freedom. And so when she finally decided to run away and find freedom, she had to make her way from where she lived in Maryland to Pennsylvania, more than 100 miles by foot. And she traveled in the dark and hid during the day, and sometimes found good people along the way who helped her, gave her food or a sense of safety for a day. After weeks of travel, she made it, and she said, "When I found I had crossed that line into a state where slavery wasn't allowed, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came out like gold through trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven." And you would think if somebody felt that way, they'd want to just stay and enjoy that feeling. But she, though she was really happy to be free, she was so worried about her other family members and friends who were still held in slavery. She said once, "I've heard their groans and sighs and seen their tears, and I would give every drop of blood in my veins to see them free." So she became what was known as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. Do you know what the Underground Railroad is? You have some idea? Tell me. But
A secret organization to help get slaves away from their masters.
a secret organization of people that helped slaves get away from their masters and move them along the way. That's right. I had somebody tell me recently when they were young, they really thought there was tunnels, that it was an underground railroad, literally. But it was secret, and that's why we use that word underground for that group, because it was dangerous to be part of this work. But it was essential for people making choices about how they're going to live in the world. Yeah?
They also used it to help slaves get out of slavery. They also used false bottom carriages with food.
And so he's saying some of the strategies that they used, they had carriages with false bottoms so that people could hide there and move and use transportation. Yeah, I'd love to hear the things that you guys are learning and reading and know about already. Harriet Tubman used to say, "I was a conductor on the Underground Railroad for 8 years, and I can say what most conductors can't. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger. I would make a home for them in the North, and the Lord helping me, I would bring them all here." So she made many dangerous trips back into Maryland to bring out small groups of slaves and to get them into places in the United States where slavery wasn't legal. But when the laws changed and the people of Pennsylvania and Ohio had to obey a law called the Fugitive Slave Act, which meant the people were expected to turn in people who used to be slaves so they could be sent back to slavery. But when that happened, Harriet Tubman said, "After that, I couldn't trust Uncle Sam with my people no longer, but I brought them all clear off to Canada." And so she adopted her strategies and had to continue and extend the Underground Railroad even further. Because she risked her life to lead so many people out of slavery, she was called Moses and sometimes General Tubman. And during the Civil War, she worked as a nurse and as a spy. And on her most famous mission, She took part in a raid at Combahee Ferry in South Carolina, and during this raid, she worked with the Union Army to free over 700 slaves at once. So lots of people are inspired by what they learned about Harriet Tubman. She didn't care only about her own safety, but felt called to continue to lead others out of slavery so they could live their lives as free people. And after the Civil War, she kept fighting for the rights of others, including fighting for the right of women to have the vote. She also established a home in Auburn, New York, to care for sick, poor, and homeless Black people. She was a woman of courage, and I hope you find her story inspiring too, and that you get a chance to learn even more about her. We're going to sing the children out now to the religious education classes. As the Time for All Ages alluded to, this summer there was a film series in town. The Ames chapter of the NAACP, the Friendship Baptist Church, the Ames Public Library, and our own Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames sponsored a summer film series called Echoes of Resilience, African Experiences in the U.S. And many people from our congregation, you must say, anybody go see a film or one or more of the films? Look, oh wow, wonderful. Wonderful. People participated in the screenings and the facilitated discussions of 8 different documentaries and films on those Tuesday evenings at the Ames Public Library. I'm grateful for the work of Reverend Kelly and the UUFA's Dismantling Racism team, who were really instrumental in organizing this film series. If you weren't able to participate in it, you'll find the titles of all of the films from the summer series in your order of service and how you can get access to them through various streaming services or DVDs at our library. And anyone who's interested, I have a few copies of the little flyer from this summer if you want to pick that up. It has short descriptions of each of the films that were part of the summer series. Members who were able to attend one or more of these events have shared how much they learned and were affected by engaging with the series and the conversations following each of the screenings. Karen Bates, the UUFA member who helped to bring today's service into being, said, "We became more informed of the history and current state of racial inequality in our country. The films opened our eyes. Some of us were shocked and stunned by the exploitation, harm, and barriers and racism that have affected and continue to impact Black Americans. Illusions were shattered." And I continue to hear the words of James Baldwin. "I imagine that one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense that once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain." This morning, several members who participated in the series will share their reflections about how engaging the films affected them and their ways of learning and the ongoing conversations, how these things continue to shape their understanding and the choices they make. Our first speaker, Marcia Brink, is joining us online today. So we'll take a moment to adjust our technology so she can share her reflection about the film Dreamland, The Burning of Black Wall Street.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Brink. And since Amy shared something about the film Harriet Tubman, I'm going to put my plug in for the film 13th. I think everybody should see that, if none of the others. The whole series was very rewarding, worthwhile. One of my main goals when I went was to meet some people, some Black attendees, because in my limited orbit of life, I have not really met that many Black people and got to know them and had friends, Black friends. However, that wasn't really possible to, I mean, I met people, but the programs themselves were exhausting. And by the time we saw the film and went through the discussion, I was too pooped to do anything but say goodnight, everybody, and go home and try to digest what we'd seen. But I did meet people, of course, and one of them was Edna Clinton, who's involved with the NAACP here in Ames, Iowa. And so I joined the NAACP, hoping that that will help me not only meet more Black people with similar values as mine, but also to make some friends. So I'm curious what that will lead to. Specifically, I'm supposed to be highlighting the film Dreamland, the burning of Black Wall Street. And before seeing this documentary, I had vaguely known about something happening years and years ago down in Tulsa, where lots of Black folks were killed. But the film really brought home to me the devastation of that event. However, the films to me seemed a little disjointed and disorganized, and I was confused about timelines and how it all came down. So I did something really brilliant. I borrowed one of the books that the library had generously laid out that evening that were related to the film, and I borrowed a book called well, here it is, The Burning, about the Tulsa Race Massacre in 1921. And this was terrific, gave me all the details that I needed, and told the journalist who wrote the book told this history by stories of real individual people and the things that really happened to them, kind of in a timeline across all these different people. And it really helped make it real. It was written by Tim Madigan, and it told about how in 1921, Tulsa was a very rich, growing community. It was a boom town based on oil. And a small neighborhood in the town was called Greenwood, was just a Black community. And it also was booming because people there could get jobs in the white part of town, and they had more money than a lot of Black communities had at that time. And they spent it on schools and all good things, businesses. They had great businesses, doctors, churches. And even though there was a little bit of racial tension between white Tulsa and Greenwood, basically, it was always under wraps. But in May of 1921, these tensions exploded when there was this rumor that a young teenage boy had attacked a white girl. And so immediately there was talk about lynching, and the white folks were trying to get this boy out of jail and were frustrated that they couldn't make the sheriff release him. So early in the morning, a group of thousands of white people attacked Greenwood. And by the time they were done, 35 city blocks in Greenwood were razed to the ground, mostly by fire. And about 300 people, there's never been an accurate count, but about 300 people were killed. Most of them were Black people. It was a brutal, horrific event. One of the messages in the whole series was about the amazing resilience of Black people through the decades and centuries in this country. And certainly that community showed resilience. But it was the brilliant stories told in this book that made it so real to me, that made me realize that no film for me is ever going to be able to get me into the mind as well as a good history book. So I'd encourage you, the library has books set aside for each of these, related to each of these films, and I'd encourage you to go check them out. We do not have the opportunities to meet so many Black people in Ames. It's just a fact. But reading is maybe the next best thing. So that's my recommendation. I'm joining NAACP and reading. That's it. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Marcia. Each week, we spend time at our service to share of the gifts that were given to us. So we will now give and receive our offering. This morning, half of our non-pledge offering will be donated to Habitat for Humanity of Central Iowa. It's part of an international network of housing organizations in all 50 states and over 70 countries. They work to create durable, affordable housing and places for people to live. One of their core values is that housing is a basic human right, and in addition to building and improving homes in partnership with community organizations and home recipients, they advocate for fair housing policies. The other half of the offering will support services and programs here at the Fellowship that make this a place of community, spiritual growth, love, and justice. We will pass the baskets here in Fellowship Hall. Alternatively, for those at home or those here with a cell phone, you can go to our website to make your contribution today. And if you are visiting with us today, please know that your presence here is gift enough. Now, while the offering is being collected, we have Aaron Lott to share some more special music with us. And Aaron, might you say a few words about your selections of music today? Yeah, sorry.
Hi. Working with Madison, getting the selections for today selected, we chose music by all Black composers from various genres. So earlier you heard a selection from jazz music, and then I'm going to be giving you an example of classic art song. And to end the service today, we have a very classic ragtime piece that you probably all will recognize.
Hi, I'm Lynn Avant, and I'm going to talk for a few minutes about my reaction to the film, I Am Not Your Negro, which was a PBS documentary about James Baldwin. And he was one of my favorite authors growing up. I really, really loved him, and he sort of faded away. How many of you knew James Baldwin? My daughter, who is very well read, said, "Who's that?" He's not a figure much anymore. So, and as I said, I had sort of lost him in the books of the 2000s and hadn't read him lately. So my reaction was to do a little deep dive, as Marcia did, into the massacre of James Baldwin and who he was and what happened to him. And so I'm going to give you a little short synopsis for the remembering of those of us that do and the knowledge of those of us who don't know who James Baldwin is. So excuse me, James Baldwin was born in 1924 and grew up in the Harlem district of New York City, and was well known for his powerful essays, for novels and poetry. And poets do see the world through sort of a different prism, I think. And so he had a lot to say about what was Black in America in particularly the time when I was in grade school, high school, college, the late 40s through the 50s into the 60s. And I read a lot of his work, and I really enjoyed it. He wrote, wait a minute, gotta get my notes out here. After the end of World War II in 1948, he emigrated to Paris, and he lived in Paris and other places throughout Europe for about the next 10 years because he was so disgusted with the place of Black people in America at that time. He wrote many of his essays, several novels at the time. He wrote a very well-renowned Harlem Ghetto essay in 1948, Notes of a Native Son in 1955, The Fire Next Time in 1963, Literature to Educate White Americans on what it really meant to be a Black person living in America in those years. And at this same time, at the end of those 10 years, it became more and more apparent in America. The Blacks wanted a better place in the world. There were the Emmett Till hanging. There was Rosa Parks, there was schools being integrated, there were all sorts of things going on, and James Baldwin felt an obligation to come back to America and be a part of what was going on, and he did. He came and lived in America for about another 10 years, marches, including the March on Washington. He became one of the best friends of Malcolm X, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. He went to the marches that were being held. He went to the Selma March. He went to the March on Washington. And he was trying throughout this time to wake us up. And sometimes, some of us did and some of us didn't. He got fairly disgusted after the assassination of Malcolm X and returned to Europe and lived there for the rest of his life. He died in 1988 of cancer, fairly young. So my reaction to the film of watching of the documentary of what he did and how he did it really made me go back and read some more of his stuff. I had not known him as a poet during the time I was growing up. I read his novels, I read his essays, but I've become sort of enamored of his poetry, so I'm going to leave you with one of his short poems that really affected me. And it was called, "For Nothing is Fixed. For nothing is fixed forever, forever, forever. It is not fixed. The earth is always shifting. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to be born. And we are responsible to them because we are the only ones witness they have. The sea rises, the light fails. Lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with each other, the sea engulfs us and the light goes out."
Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Ames, we hold each other so that the sea does not engulf us and the light does not go out. We take some time each week to share our burdens as well as the beautiful moments of our lives, and we bring our whole selves to this space. Together we live into our pain, our brokenness, our healing, and our tender joy. Yesterday, we held the celebration of life for Mike Winchester here. These flowers are from that memorial. And today, we are taking a moment to memorialize our late member, Wes Shank, who died this summer. Members of Wes's family are here. We are grateful that you've joined us today. After the service today, those of you who would like to will move out this back door. I hope the alarm has been disabled. We'll work on that. We'll move out to the memorial garden and we'll place a stone for Wes in a short ceremony. Here's a bit more about his life. Wesley Ivan Shank, always just Wes, please, was born on March 1st, 1927 in San Francisco. He served in World War II in the U.S. Navy as an electronics technician. After his honorable discharge in 1946, he married Georgine Morrison in 1949, and they had 3 children together. Wes obtained his Bachelor of Arts in Architecture from the University of California, Berkeley in 1951. And the family came to Ames in 1964 when Wes began teaching in the ISU Department of Architecture. He earned his master's degree here in 1965. Many summers saw Wes working for the Historical American Building Survey, documenting historically significant buildings and structures across the United States. And he developed the Iowa Catalog, a historic American building survey. And he thought that this work, this documentation and research and listing of each of the 99 Iowa County courthouses was his most important achievement for Iowa. You can find this both at the Ames Historical Society and at the Ames Public Library. He was so touched when former students reached out to him with questions about historical building research. Wes joined the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship when he was 82 years old, and he jumped right into activity. just said to me today he was not afraid of trying new things. He served on the board and the building committee, and he was an active member of the Romeos, the retired old men eating out, until his death this summer. Wes died peacefully on July 5th. We hold Wes's family members with care as you continue to live into these tender days and to live into his legacy to you. Let's take a few moments of quiet, and into this space, let's share names of individuals or groups that we are holding in our hearts. The people of Gaza. Trans folks. Faith Winchester. We make a spiritual practice here of expanding the muscle of our heart to hold these cares and know that we do not hold them alone. We hold them together. Let's sing Love Will Guide Us prayerfully today.
They have a clock here, that's great. I'm Terry Lohman, and I'm going to talk about the movie Brian Banks. I'm not really going to talk a lot about the movie. It was a tale of our criminal justice system persecuting a young man, and it was maybe very typical of how the criminal justice system works. Not very well. And the different thing about this movie was it had a good outcome. Because if you watch the movie, 99% of the people would just give up. I mean, these walls between you and justice, and why would you work that hard? This movie also speaks to our Congregational Study Action issue for 2025 to 2029 on abolition, and they're talking about prison abolition. And I'm for it, with the caveat that even the people who are major advocates do not have a destination. They do not have a goal. We're not going to totally get rid of prisons, but there's so many parts of the prison that really need to go. Removing people from their community, and the abuses of the criminal justice system are horrific. To start with, 95% of the convictions are plea bargains. And this is where the prosecutor says, well, you can take my plea and get 2 years probation, or we can go to trial and you might get 30 years. Well, if you know how juries work, you might prefer the 2 years probation, even if you were innocent, as Brian was. The system's set up to convict people, not to create justice. Imprison first and ask very few questions later. There's an alternative to that, and it's restorative justice circles, where you bring The victims of the crime and the perpetrators, those words are a little awkward. It's not that black and white, but at any rate, bring them together and have a conversation, and then it doesn't only help bring the perpetrator to justice, it also helps the victim to have some closure and deal with it. Everybody ends up better that way. I've got a quote from Brian Stevenson. He's the Justice, I'm not going to have the name.
Equal Justice Initiative.
Yes, Equal Justice Initiative. It's easier for a rich, guilty man than a poor, innocent man to get freed. And he also has one other quote that I didn't write down, but it's basically, you're not the worst thing you've ever done. And I like that quote because we've all done shitty things, and maybe it's kind of nice that we understand that isn't the whole person. My final thoughts on it are, why do we refuse to fund public defenders fully? We would rather spend money on imprisoning people. It's just weird to me because prisons are really expensive and they're just homes for injustice and pain. Okay, but it's a good movie. It does allow you to see how our criminal justice system is really in bad need of repair and redesigning. And so now I want to invite Deb Klein to do our final reflection. It's a good movie. It probably was the best theatrical.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about whiteness and my growing edge of change. All of the films in this series jarred me into a deeper witnessing of Black people's lived experiences. I have long amplified Black voices online and social media and looked forward to the Ames community coming together around Black experience with local Black leaders at the forefront of this collaboration. After each film, the same 3 questions were asked to start the discussion. What in your life would be different if you were Black? Where do you see resilience in this film? Knowing this, how will your actions change going forward? My internal answers each week were similar. What would be different in my life if I were Black? Everything. Where do I see resilience in this film? Everywhere. Knowing this, how will my actions change going forward? I did not have an answer for this one. As a group, I observed white participants in the room, and it was a minimum 90% white audience, and listened to their answers, or rather responses. I saw white discomfort on display, mine and others. And what do I mean when I say white discomfort? Here are some examples. And I'm calling myself out here because I do this too. White respondents would avoid answering the question and talk about whatever they liked or didn't like about the film. Or briefly answer the question with a few words and then say what they wanted to say to point the discussion in a new direction. I don't know if we ever as a group answered how our actions would change going forward, other than listing off what we were already doing and naming our past actions. One person, 3 weeks in a row, said, "I don't see any resilience here," and proceeded to say what they thought about the film. And I mostly sat quietly and said little to nothing. After the Dreamland movie, hosted by Tony Moten, I had a discussion with him while others were leaving the auditorium. Per his bio, Tony is an award-winning journalist, screenwriter with master's degree in both fields. He has worked as a sports writer, entertainment columnist, magazine writer, and investigative reporter across the country. And currently, he is an assistant teaching professor at Iowa State University in sports media, journalism, and broadcasting. Tony is also a Black man. Trying to be a good ally, and don't do this, because this is not allyship. I introduced myself, and I said, "I noticed, Tony, that we didn't answer any of your questions." He chuckled and said, "You noticed that too?" "Yep," I replied, "and I'm sorry for that." And I proceeded to tell him how I would answer the questions. Then he asked me, "Why didn't you say something, Deb? You could have helped me out here. You left me hanging." Gulp. I mumbled some excuse about respecting my church elders in the room and not wanting to offend them. And in my head, I am thinking, after all, who am I to speak to a room full of white people about racism? I'm not even on the dismantling racism team. I noted how easy it was for me to amplify Black voices online compared how hard it was to speak my own words in person and in real time. Tony replied, "You noticed, and you didn't say anything. Say something next time. I'm disappointed in you." Ouch. I said, "Yeah, I'm disappointed in me too." All my online advocacy, and I failed big time. At least now I had one answer instead of Knowing this, how will your actions change going forward? Answer, say something when I see it. The next week, I heard the "I don't see resilience here" person speak up again. And don't worry, it wasn't any of our UU participants. I raised my hand when they finished and named my silent answer out loud. I see resilience everywhere, and shared some specific examples. I still failed to call out my general observations of people avoiding the question and changing the subject. But I guess I'm starting that by speaking here, now, today. I am calling us all out, especially me. When you see something, say something. Or find your own answer to the question, knowing this, how will your actions change going forward? How will your actions change going forward? After everything you have heard here this morning, how will your actions change going forward?
Thank you, Deb, and all of this, the people who put this together, for not only calling us out, but calling us back in to community where we bring our mistakes, where we can be all that we are. You can't do anti-racism work without making mistakes. That's just a fact. So we make mistakes together, and then we call back in to heal them together. So grateful for that. Now, we're doing something just a little bit different after we sing our closing song, and it's going to take some explanation. In 2 weeks' time, we will be part of the annual Ames Pride Interfaith Service. And this year, rather than having all of the congregations get up and say something, which takes a long time and runs together, we're recording short videos. And today is our day to record our short video. Very short. The only words are, we welcome you exactly as you are to the UU Fellowship of Ames. We're going to rehearse that in a minute. Here's how it's going to go. We're going to stand up in a few minutes as you're willing and able and sing our closing hymn. We're going to do when the Spirit says do. So we're going to get it in our bodies. We're going to sing, feel good. We're going to stay standing. We're going to turn around to the back camera right back there. We're going to be silent for the count of 5, 4, 3. We welcome you. Okay, let's practice that. We welcome you exactly as you are to the UU Fellowship of Ames. That's good. We're going to be even more enthusiastic when we do it. And then we're going to stay smiling and quiet for, there's going to be a slide to count down and show you. This is so we get a clean cut on either end of this little video, and then we sit down and we'll close out the service. Clear as mud? It's going to work great. Let's stand and sing number 1024, Do When the Spirit Says Do, and then we'll turn around and we'll coach through the rest of it.
and then we'll say together. Go ahead. We welcome you exactly as you are to the UU Fellowship of Ames. Well done. Well done. All right, a few closing words.
We will now extinguish all of our chalices here and those with our friends online by saying together, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I'm so grateful for the many minds and voices and hands that came together to create today's service, especially to those who participated in the summer film series. I hope today's service helps those conversations continue. What changes will we experience in our lives and the way we move in the world as a result of these conversations and this learning and growth? I want to especially thank Ann Kimber and our special music today, Aaron Lott. Thank you so much. The incredible tech duo team back there today, Donald Lewis and Melissa Neeson, Sarah Carlson and Reverend Kelly and Karen Bates, who helped pull this service all together today, and the anti-racism team for their work establishing the film series. Thanks to all the RE teachers and coffee makers and treat bringers, and to all those joining us online today. And I want to say thank you to our art committee that has a lovely art display, new art display that just went up this week that is all about holding us together. So as we depart this morning, full of new ideas and commitments, I want to share the closing words from James Baldwin's 1962 New York Times essay, "As Much Truth as One Can Bear." Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Thank you for joining us this morning. Aaron, will you lead us out with some Scott Joplin?